Okay, looking at our first do now problem, we have the quotient, so we have x divided by y. Is it positive or negative? We see that x is negative and y is positive, so we have a negative divided by a positive. Same rules as multiplication, this will be negative. Looking at this, we're looking for the quotient of x and y. We have x divided by y. We have a negative and a negative. Same rules as multiplication. This will be positive. Alright, label the place values below. We should have this as the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and the 10 thousandths. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at our aim for today. Okay, today's aim, we're going to convert fractions to decimals using equivalent fractions. So as you're writing down the aim, think about what goes on in the real world. There are plenty of examples where decimals are used, and there are plenty of examples where fractions are used. So if you think about it, when we talk about money, when we talk about the metric system, these are plenty of places where we would use decimals. But other times, such as thinking about measuring on a ruler or measuring ingredients for a recipe, those are often done in fractions. So it's important to be able to switch between the two in case you are dividing things. We know that they don't always come out as whole numbers, so we have to be able to divide them and have them end up in the places that we want them to, just depending on the scenario and what we need. So thinking about this is like maybe we have a recipe and we are trying to change the recipe by cutting it in half or multiplying it. We have to ask ourselves, have you ever seen a recipe, call for like 2.7 cups of flour? And the answer is no, because most measuring cups are in different fractions. So we may want to change that decimal into a fraction so we can figure it out. At the same time, when we think about like going to the gas station, you would never see the gas station suggest that you're going to pay $3 3/7 for a gallon of gas. We're never going to measure money in terms of a fraction per se, so we would want to go ahead and convert that to a decimal. So quickly summarize what I just said about describing why we need to know how to represent rational numbers in different ways. Hopefully you've said something along the lines of, in different scenarios, different representations are appropriate. Are appropriate. All right, something like that. So what is the value of the number 2.25? How can this be written as a fraction or a mixed number? So when we're looking at this, we see that we have two wholes. So this means that our value is going to be more than two wholes, and we have 0.25. So a lot of us recognize 0.25 as being 25 cents or 1/4 of a dollar. Some of us might think about it in terms of looking at our how we would read this number 2 and 25 hundredths. But a lot of us also know that 25 hundredths is also 1/4. So when we think about this, there are a couple different ways we can think about it. So rewriting the fraction in the simplest form, and that's just a reminder that our steps when we're simplifying fractions is to figure out what we can divide both numerator and denominator by. Because remember, when we're dividing this by 25 over 25, really we're just dividing it by 1. And that's just a reminder of why the fractions are equivalent. Alright, what is the value of the number 2.025? So when we look at this is where we can often get confused. When we look at this one, we have to think about our place values here. This number is going to be much less than 2.25, because if we just think about lining them up, 2.250, so this is, and 2.025. So we have this number now, and we can see that this is much less because we have only 25 as compared to 250. So when we think about this is going to have to be, this isn't one that we just know. We can't think about this, oh, like this is quarters, because this is definitely not quarters. So looking at this, we're going to think about the place values. We have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. We would read this as 2 and 25 thousandths. So our fraction is going to be 2 and 25 thousandths. So if I want to write this in simplest form, we've got 25 thousandths. I can divide both of these numbers by 25. So again, that's like that division of 1. That's not going to change the value. This is going to give me 1. This is not going to give me 4. It's going to give me 4t. So I get 1/40. Alright. Moving over here, convert each terminating decimal into a fraction. So these are terminating decimals. We know that because they stop. They're not repeating decimals. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. This is 218 thousandths. I'm trying to figure out what they're divisible by. I can't really see anything except for I know that they're both divisible by 2 because they're both even. This is going to give me 109 500ths. And just thinking through this really quickly, 109, this digits add up to 10, so it's not divisible by 3. I don't think it's divisible by 7, but 500 really is only divisible by 5s, 4s, and 5s and 2s, so we're going to be stuck there. Alright, 2.72, so that's the tenths and hundredths. This is 2 and 72 hundredths. So we need to go ahead and change that fraction there and simplify it. I see first a division of 2 is possible. So that's going to give me 2 and 36 50ths. So it looks like I can do that again, divided by 2 over 2. It's going to give me 2 and 18 25ths. Alright, write the number as a decimal. So we have 3 hundredths, so I need the tenths and the hundredths place. And I need 3, so that's 0.3, filling in the blank there. 3/20ths. So if I want to do this, that means I need to have it in tenths or hundredths. So when I look at this, I have 3 over 20, and to get that to hundredths, I need to multiply by 5 over 5. That's going to give me 15 hundredths. So that's 0.10 hundredths 1 5. Alright, we have 10 over 25. In order to get that to hundredths, I need to multiply by 4 over 4. That's going to give me 40 hundredths. So in decimal form, tenths hundredths, that's 40.40. And really we could take off the 0 on the end and just make it 0.4. Alright, what is the number 8/40ths as a decimal? Now this one gets a little bit trickier because we have 8/40ths and nothing times 40 is going to quite go into 100. So we're going to have to figure out maybe something larger that we can put that into. So I see this 4 over here, and that 4 makes me think that I want to go ahead and throw in like a 25. Just thinking because I know 4 times 25. And when I do that, times 25 over 25, I'm going to get 1,000. Alright, and so I get 25 times 8 is going to be 200. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths this time, and I need 200, which looks like it's possible, because we don't really need those. This is 0.2. It's possible that we could have taken the 8/40ths and also gotten it down to a divided by 4 over 4 and got it to 2/10, which would be 2/10. Same idea. All right. Flip on over to your partner work time. Here you have some examples that we want to convert to the decimals to fraction, or the fractions to decimals using an equivalent fraction. So change them to fractions of 100, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it takes to get it done. So go ahead and do that. On the right hand side we have just quickly converting a couple fractions to decimals. Okay, go ahead and look at this problem. These problems, the one that I really want to talk about here is B. So we notice this is an improper fraction. So when I change that, I get 140 over 100, which if I'm putting that in decimal, I'm thinking about tenths, hundredths. It's hard to think about how 140 goes into this. But when we think about it, the fact that this is actually the mixed number 1 and 2/5, it makes it a little bit easier to understand and think about it as, okay, we have 1 and the decimal here is 2/5, which is 41/100. So now we can kind of see like, oh, well, I could have put this as 140 100ths. So go ahead and check over the rest of your work. The other one to think about here that I think you want to focus in on here, notice the place value here, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. That way we have 10,000ths here. 5 10,000ths divided by 5 over 5 gives me 1 over 2,000. Alright, all that checked, please go ahead and flip on over and finish up your alone time today, and then you have some time to work on Khan.